start the session, can I kindly request Thero and Shanika to present the questions or the reports that you have received today, please?
During mindful walking, I tried to observe the sole of my feet and the sensations I felt at that touch point as I walked. As I continued, I gradually started to observe the sensations of walking throughout my whole, including the muscles flexing in my calves and drift, and I attempted to be aware that I was distracted whilst bringing my attention back to walking. Mindful sitting. Whilst doing mindful sitting, I attempted to observe the sensations of breathing through the rising and falling of my stomach. I would attempt to be aware of the sensations in order to be in the present moment. I would occasionally observe my breathing through my nose or sensations from other touch points in my body, but I found I was most mindful whilst observing my breathing through the rising and falling of my stomach. During sitting, I would get distracted often and would occasionally get sleepy and restless after being in the same position for long periods of time. However, I tried to be aware of these thoughts and bring my awareness back to my breathing.
Okay. Both walking and sitting seems to be having the same pattern. You're mentioning that you were observing sensations both in walking and sitting. And when you observe sensation, it is better if you can specify what the sensations are. Is it coming?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
Good. Nissarana, can you just go and invite him, please? Just ask him to take a rest and come. Okay. So you have mentioned about sensation. So when you observe sensation, it is better to mention what the sensation is so that it will be more specific and you are more aware. And at the same time, you are mentioning both in walking and sitting, you bring the mind back. So if you can bring the mind back, it is good. And if you are not agitated. And when you bring the mind back, if you feel that you are getting more and more agitated, don't bring the mind back. Let whatever happens happen and just keep observing that. Keep observing that. When you keep observing, let the mind naturally come. So you have two options. When you intentionally bring, if you are not agitated, that's fine. But if you are agitated, don't try to bring it back. Just observe, and when you observe, it will naturally come back. And those are the common things in walking and sitting. And in breathing, you have mentioned rising and falling is better. When you have found that particular place or particular technique, particular thing is better to practice mindfulness, use that. So it's a good understanding of yourself. This is how we understand ourselves. And also you have mentioned in sitting, you are feeling sleepy and restless. It is again, you feel sleepy because you have stopped all holiday mood. Here you have a completely different holiday. The meaning of holiday is you don't do anything. So we have given the real holiday. So when you get that holiday, you don't have anything to do, you feel sleepy. So that is feeling sleepy means you really enjoy this holiday. Right? So if you go on holiday somewhere else to the beach or climb a mountain or something, then you will never feel sleepy because so many things to do. But you will be more tired. Right? Here you are not tired. You don't do anything. So therefore sleepiness comes, which means you gradually come out of liking things and you gradually come out of disliking things. So when the liking and disliking gradually fades away, the sleepiness takes upper hand. So it's a progress, although you may see it as a degress in the path. and also restless. Mind is getting restless because you are not used to this sleepiness, and you are trying to fight with that sleepiness. And the best thing is you have mentioned that you are trying to be mindful even of these mental changes, the emotions. So that's the only thing that we can do. We should not react to anything, whether it is sleepy or whether it is restless or whether it is annoyed, whether it is hateful. You simply start observing it. So good on you. Keep it up. So we'll go for the next report until Bante comes.
The next person.
Can you check with Zoom whether they can hear when you talk? You can just talk there.
Can Zoom hear me? Okay. This person is 9 years old and they've been to Satipasala for 1 to 2 years. For mindful walking, they said, I tried to focus on when my foot lifts from the floor. I was observing how...
Sorry, say that sentence again.
Yeah. I tried to focus on when my foot lifts from the floor. I was observing how the floor felt. The floor was a bit cold. It was hard and I could feel the line on the ground. Then I went on to the carpet. It was soft and fluffy. When I put my toes on the carpet, it made little gaps. And for mindful walking distractions, they said, I got distracted by people opening and closing the door. I also got distracted by the things outside the windows, like people and birds, and the noises as well. For mindful sitting, they've said, I noticed how when I breathe in, my stomach gets squashed in. When I exhale, I can feel my stomach expanding. Every time I took a breath in, my shoulders went a little up. When I exhaled, my shoulders went down. I got distracted by noises and a little pain in my ankles/legs. That was all.
All right. So here again, being a 9-year-old, it's again a very good report. You have specifically mentioned the sort of sensation that you felt, and you are mentioning here that you were mindful of the flow. In fact, you are not mindful of the flow. You are mindful of your sole of the feet. So when you're mindful of the sole of the feet, only you feel what is there on the floor. So whatever it is, sensations have been specified. That's very good. And keep observing and see how many steps you can keep observing this coldness and hardness, and then you will have more information coming. And you have also mentioned initially start walking on the floor, then you go onto the carpet. So it is better when you walk, select one path and walk on that path, right? The reason is our mind always wants a change, because when you keep on doing one thing, you just become bit what you call lethargic, monotonous, and then you change to something else. So therefore you can avoid that if you use the same flow, unless there is a danger. If there is a danger, or Bante said not to change, and you keep going, you don't do that. All right. So even in sitting, observing rising and falling and observing shoulders going up and down is very good. Just give us a second until it gets down. Now I'm going to check my mic. Also, I wanted just let me finish this particular report, and then I will hand over the control to the controlling group. Yeah, it's good that you have observed two things when you're breathing in and breathing out is happening. It is not just only rising and falling of the tummy. You have also observed the shoulders going up and down. It is, observation of two things is fine. Maybe it is happening at the same time. In a way, you are more mindful. But there is a saying that when you go, have you seen processions in Sri Lanka? Candy Pelahar and things like that? And when you go to Kandi Perahara, if you go on the Perahara, you can't see Perahara. But if you just go to a balcony somewhere and observe the procession going, then you will be able to see all dancers, everything that is happening. So therefore, if you keep moving from one place to the other, you may not become like a CCTV camera as such, right? So therefore, it is better to pick one and keep observing. But maybe after some time when you get used to, there are many things happening at the same time and you will be able to see that as well. So it's up to you to decide what's happening to you. So anyway, it looks like you are not reacting to what is happening, simply observing. So with that comment, I have answered 2 reports, one thing, and I will hand over the mic to you.
So I have a criticism about this answer. Excuse me. Because that when you are in procession, if you are dancing, or if you are moving in the procession, if you have no doubts, please dance. If you have doubt only, you have to take a place and see the Perahara. So therefore, when your mind is diversifying, from rising and falling to the breadth and the shoulders and everything, if you have any doubt only, you have to refer back to the primary object, get the orientation back. If there is no doubt, so take whatever the person who is happy to take it up and take a risk. Do you understand my criticism? Can you say the same thing again? You understood it. He's very good in English and translating, explaining and typing. I am just a great crasher. I came in and I gave an open criticism. Do you understand the difference? Can you put into your words?
If you have
Talk to the mic.
If you have a doubt in what you're observing, then you should go back to your original focal point. But if you have no doubt in what you're observing, then you can continue to observe that.
Yeah, that's very good. And still you have to have the primary object as your reference point, your benchmark, your datum line. And with that, you know you are running a risk. It's at your own risk. And that is the only place the new things can come in. I mean, diversification can come in. So that is the difference between Samatha Bhavana and Vipassana Bhavana. Samatha Bhavana is always advised to go back to the primary object in the safety first system. But here you are running a risk. This is never mind. I will run a little bit and come back again to the safe layer. And again you can go there. So that part is at your own risk. So I'm happy to invite you all because he selected, it is not a criticism, he is a Upakilita Sutta. There's one of the Sutta be explaining, describing Canberra, Brisbane. And the long story, very beautiful story. And the Buddha was so disheartened, like, because monks are fighting. No way out. So he escaped. He go to a forest and found 3 monks very happily. It was established the situation. And Buddha is encountering with Venerable Anuruddha. They ask, after you have that kind of a nice situation, what are you going to do? He says, I am meditating. How is your experience? Then after a while, I get some light and some concentration, but it don't last. It is disturbed. So, it has happened to me also. I checked why it is not lasting, why it is not sustainable, because I have my doubts. Can such a thing happen for a beginner like me? So therefore, I thought it is better to go to the primary object, accordingly, so vocabulary. Therefore, I decided not to entertain doubts, just to go there. And then he says, now one hurdle is over, and then Amanishakaro, the second doubt, second obstacle came. And likewise, he is explaining further and further. So therefore, the first and foremost thing is, you have to believe your own experience. So my comment is, you won't believe meditation is so quickly answered. But you won't believe. You think, I am young, I am a beginner, that cannot be. There's no such. But if you have a doubt, please. As Venerable D.R. Dhammajiva, Dr. Bhante is in the room. It's D.R. Bhante, Dr. Bhante. Dr. D.R. means standing for Dhammajiva. So one day I tapped his on door and told Dr. Bhante, he can't recognize me. So keep that safe land and then play little and then see. So likewise, you have to run a risk. You have to believe your own experience, and it is not an imagination. It is not a theoretical, but it's something happening. So therefore, whenever you are observing the breath, rising and falling also can happen. Some shades of rising and falling, and climbing and falling down of the shoulders, an expansion and contraction of the thing can happen. So to justify my statement, I would say, never the one cause give a one effect. Thousands of causative factors going to give 1001 effects, results. Our linear education is one-to-one. Do you understand the linear education? That is what's happening in the schools. It's a one-to-one relationship, but it is happening many reasons, many causative factors, going to give many outcomes. So our mind cannot comprehend it unless otherwise you go prepare. So therefore, there is no two methods as rising and falling and breath. Both are the same. When you observe the in-breath and out-breath, rising and falling characteristic can happen. Just accommodate it. But if you are entertaining doubts, I am repeating, you have to have the way back to your rising and breath. Sorry to criticize him. I don't think that we will get misunderstanding or miscommunication. And you all are the witness. We are going to the next. And each time I will give the mic to him to what is his view.
And then he criticizes me.
And yes, definitely. That's why I don't have so much of long friends. I don't have. Very quickly they get upset. Because one day I say something and next day I am telling completely different thing. And I try my best to justify it and reason it out. So you are the witness. You are the jury in the court. Yes.
Mindful walking.
Mindful walking.
My focus during mindful walking was the sole of each foot, how the sensations felt on each foot when I was stepping. My focus sometimes got distracted when someone coughed or sneezed, but then again I refocused on my steps and was aware that I did get distracted. Mindful sitting. My focus during mindful sitting was focusing on my breath, what sensations I felt and could hear around me. My focus got distracted more, I would say, in mindful sitting, as my mind would think about other things and wonder and daydream.
Yeah. So this also that you are starting with one particular appointed primary object. And that is what we call meditation. That's what we call the beginner's mind. As you keep on, mind is working with someone's agenda. Your thing is to look at the primary object. But mind is jumping without symptoms or signs. And then you decide, I'm a meditator. And what will be the situation of the non-meditators? They don't have a primary object. Then after it is wandering. But the meditator also, even though yesterday's sitting was good, today is not bad, not so good, because mind is not only the one line, it is moving here and there. So my answer is you can accommodate that. Definitely, theoretical maximum is your primary object, yes. But still there may be a little bit of moving up and down. that appreciate, that tolerance is your own sympathy to yourself. And then ultimately you are developing, increasing your understanding about the meditation. Even though you have a wrong line, even though you are asking mind to go along the line, there may be some here and there. And don't expect theoretical maximum, can be. But the thing is, you have to put that into a reporting, just like this one. Then the other party can have a chance. Yes, she or he knows that my line, the primary object, but brave enough to report, no, it is wandering. And to add little more, after the wandering, definitely mind is come back to your primary object. It's a given fact. If you can write that also into the report, that means you are a very good reporter, you are a very good interpreter, but many are not so patient enough to see after the wandering, mind is definitely coming back to the primary object. The day you see it, you may not report it, but teacher has to promote, tell, okay, be aware of the unmindful mind, that is not your agenda, it is happening. But then what happens? You can't observe the unmindful mind unless otherwise you sympathize it. Unless otherwise you go prepared for that. Then it's after the circle, it's again come back to primary object. So this is the way you are learning the way back home. After the wandering, how the way back home. That's also not you. Going out also not you. There is something wrong according to your observation because you must go along the line. Primary object, but it is happening. Whatever the happening into your mind never gives rise to any unskillfulness. It's something happening to you. You are not doing it. And ultimately, theoretically, we can say definitely it is coming back, but for the beginner, it may be too much. So in beginner is given some kind of a samatha instructions. Try to keep as much as possible on the primary object. But you have managed to see, even then mind is wandering. If you are not worrying, if you are not self-accusing yourself, you may patient enough, the mind again come back to your primary object. The day when it happens and the day you report, you are going to harvest your benefits. If you are not reporting, you are not mature enough. So can we ask that particular person to raise the hand, who has written the question? Did the paper came from the sky? So we can have a dialogue and we can cross question. Is it true what I'm telling, or is he or she witnessing for that, or is it something I have fabricated? You are the one written. No. How they give it? Whose report? Okay, then I get it. No one is. Okay, now I can open, or otherwise we have moved.
No, I think we have quite a few reports, so we can move.
Yes.
Okay. So the next person is 16 years old, and they've been in the Satipasana for 3 or more years. For mindful walking, they said, my focal point during most of my mindful walking sessions was the sole of my feet, but it expanded to the way I lifted and moved my feet a few times. I walked on the carpet and wooden floor. I noticed some things that I normally don't feel, like the individual fluffiness of the carpet fibers, and the way my weight moved from the heel to the toes, causing that part to press harder against the floor. I got distracted sometimes, so I would note it and bring my attention back to walking. If I held my mindfulness for a long time, I would notice more things, like the way my weight shifted and the joints that moved. My hips would feel it first, then my knee, and so on. For mindful sitting, they said, my main focal point was the way I felt my breath in my windpipe. Sometimes it extended to the breath in my nostrils as well. I noticed that the inhalation breath felt cool, while the exhalation breath felt warm. I also noticed that I could feel a little pulling sensation before a breath started, especially before breathing in. But I had to hold my mindfulness for an extended time to tune into this. As with mindful walking, I got distracted by noises and thoughts, but I noted them and brought my attention back to the breath. However, I found that more difficult during sitting than walking on this retreat. Usually, I am more successful during walking, maybe because walking involves more physical sensation.
Yeah, the understanding and finding the fruitfulness of the walking is a very good sign, because it is last long, because it's very practical. But in both the sessions, manage to bring back the attention to your primary object. So that means, when compared to the last report, it is one step ahead. Yes, mind is wandering, and with your effort or effortlessly, mind is coming back to the primary object. If the day you can report the path, it is coming back, beautiful. The way back home. It is now in neuroscientists, they are testing it. How, when a distraction happens, how an unpredictable adverse situation happens, how quickly mind come back. It is called resilience. That is the term they are using. And the Buddha explained there are 4 stages on the way back home. So that indicates that way back home wise we all are the same. Whoever it may be, way back home is exactly. The going out depends on we are a human, we are a male, we are a female, we are educated, we are rich and kind of thing. So the day you give little bit of attention to see the way back home, the only character, you must go prepared. That can happen. It is not a mishap, it is not an unfortunate situation. Just let them happen. Let it happen. And see the way back home is generally mentioned 2 sentences. Please try to expand it, and then you will see your subconscious. You will see what is happening under the carpet. So whatever it is happening, you have to explore into. That means as a beginner, let the mind to play kites, no harm. See how the way back home, and this is just started. Promoting and asking, if possible, to give how the way back home happens. It will be a very, very, how to call it, very good essay, and very revealing your subconscious, and everyone can share it. Yeah, movie.
Okay, so this person is 17 years old and has been in Vipassana for about 5 years. During mindful walking, I started by observing the motion of my feet during the walking process. I was aware of my knees slowly moving forward before my heel lifted off the floor, followed by my toes. Then the same when each foot was placed on the floor, heel, arch, toes. My awareness then changed from the walking process to the surface that I was walking on. When walking outside, I was aware of the coolness of the decking and the texture of the crevices in the wood. I noticed how the temperature of the wood was significantly colder compared to the temperature of my feet. I then noticed how the temperature of the soles of my feet were much warmer in comparison to my socks. When walking inside, I was aware of the fluffy texture of the carpet I was walking on, and how I got closer and closer, and how as I got closer and closer to the glass door and the sunlight coming through it, that the temperature of the carpets started getting warmer. Throughout all the walking sessions, I did experience many distractions. This included cramps in my feet and calves, pain in my lower back, the sounds of other people's footsteps, and when my body weight was imbalanced at some points and I would stumble. I also had many thoughts throughout my mindful walking practices, as well as feelings such as calmness, frustration, pain, happiness, and more. With all these observations, I was able to note them and observe what was happening. In some cases, such as pain, the pain would gradually increase as I observed it, and then my mind would naturally go somewhere else or back to the walking process. For mindful sitting. During mindful sitting, I started by observing my breathing, and in most cases, this was through my nose. I was aware of how my in-breaths were cool and my out-breaths were warm. I felt the temperature of my in-breaths as they entered through my nostrils, and felt the temperature of my throughout many thoughts which I was able to observe. The more I observed my thought process, the deeper I would get buried in them, until something else like a pain arose and my awareness switched to that. Most of the pain I observed was in my knees, neck, and back. After a while, the pain started to become unbearable, so I would change my posture to fix this. Something that was bothering me in my sitting was that I felt like I was falling asleep and suddenly being jolted awake, as I felt like I was almost being pushed by someone. I know I wasn't falling asleep because I was aware of all of this happening, so I opened my eyes to see if the same thing would happen if my eyes were open, which it didn't. This feeling really bothered me as my stomach would drop each time it happened. So, to stop it, I would lower my chin down to stop this motion. I know I shouldn't have done that and should have just observed it, but I still switched it on purpose.
So very analytical, that means very dynamic, very enthusiastic kind of position, and the report also very lucrative, very good. One comment I have, so when you are moving forward, you say if you believe the palm as your soul, you start with the heel and then slowly spreading to the toes, and when you transferring the weight to the toes, the next leg is starting with the heel. And it's happened. And it is when you're open-eyed and you're walking forward, there's similarities of every one of us. Imagine you are walking backward. Then what is the sequence? It is starting from the toes and slowly coming back. And when it is going to give the weight to the heel, the other leg come and start with the toes. So therefore, we introduce in walking meditation or rather in the mindful games, walking backward. And there the complete situation is different. So definitely you will find that speed is very low and sequence is different. And then we ask to go again forward, close that. And then ask to come back after a while, close the eyes backward. And there your mindfulness and vigilance become double-fold, triple-fold because your eyes are closed and there the touch sensation become very, very sensitive. So therefore it's a mindful game to walk forward, open eye, backward, open eye, forward, closed eyes, backward, closed eyes. And sometimes we put a rope. Have you done it before? Walking back and forth with the rope, and there you can see the sequence. There's one boy in Canada, he has seen 12 places in changing the weight from heel to the toes. When the 12 points are observed, you see angles in the ankle have 12 angles. When the heel is given something, and when it goes to the toes, different. So likewise, you can have many, many episodes. There is a thin slicing of time. And there you can see the world cannot make such a machine like our leg. You have seen the backhoe machine, how it is working. is how mechanical, but it's so organic, backward, forward. So therefore, at the beginning, we do just open right and forward. And whenever someone is dynamic and manage to report it, us to see the backward walking, closed eyes backward and forward. And when you are in a mindful games, we give a half sheet paper and fold it. And in one side, you ask to draw a flower. And the other half, draw it with the left hand. It's completely different. It's not beautiful. It is just a cover. So last time we did it in Melbourne. We did it. And then I asked, so hold the pen from your leg and then try to draw. It will not be a flower. But have you seen people with, they don't have both the arms, but they are working with the leg. They can put the key into the keyhole, open it, and open the door. Then only our neurobics are working. Otherwise we are in a rut. We have to break it. So the walking meditation is a kind of a dynamic and is fair enough analytical report writing and observation, and try to see backward also. Then mindfulness will grow leaps and bounds. It's a rather risky, rather challengeful, but you have that capacity. You have this potential that to give that kind of a challenge. You are moving.
Okay. For mindful walking, this person has said, I start walking, bringing awareness to my feet. I can observe a couple of steps, then I notice my wandering mind. As soon as I notice thoughts, awareness comes back to my feet. I couldn't help noticing that during walking meditation, my awareness is mainly on my wandering mind than the feet. 60 to 70% of the time, I felt awareness is on my thoughts. I'm not regularly practicing walking meditation, and I got to admit I prefer sitting meditation over walking meditation. And for mindful sitting, they said, my attention is not focused on anywhere. I can observe vibrations in the background. I observe these vibrations in daily activities like sleeping and reading. When sitting, my mind is more like an empty screen. I can observe thoughts appearing and disappearing on it. If my mind starts wandering and I become aware of it, awareness comes back to the empty screen. Thoughts don't bother me much, and I'm at peace. Mind is more relaxed. I feel in walking meditation my mind is restless, and the constant flow of thoughts bother me.
So that means in the sitting, you have two options according to my analysis, with object and without object. So your mind prefers without object. That means you are hating the objects. Those who prefer object, they hate no objects, emptiness. So this is how mind become liking and disliking and favoritism. So therefore in sitting, easily that particular person will go into the emptiness and he or she is happy. That indicates he or she is hating objects. And in walking meditation, objects are very prominent, and therefore that kind of a person invariably hates it. That's why it says I am happy with the walking meditation. So with this kind of a revelation, please go back to your primary object. Walking meditation also. Walking meditation hardly you get no objects here situation, but you can see walking is happening effortlessly, just autopiloting like. And there you can have a little distance from the walking operation and you observe yourself. But in sitting, specifically for these characters, can easily go into emptiness or vacuum. So if you like vacuum, that means definitely you hate objects. With that kind of a mindset, that kind of a preparedness, if you observe, who gave you the preference to the emptiness with compared with the objects, you don't know. There's something inbuilt, something in your mindset. So you have to understand it. I have this kind of thing. It's a very subtle likings and disliking. I don't know it is too much for that particular person, but I would like to give this challenge and try to practice again and again the same way and observe how likings and disliking working. And it is a long trip in our life. We suffer because of liking and disliking. Otherwise, we all are the same. Any object is the same. But if you can understand the liking and disliking, it is an ultimatum in the discipline. It is not the moral discipline. It is not the concentration discipline. It is directly to the wisdom discipline, and you are observing yourself just like you are in front of a mirror. You can understand and don't object, don't criticize, just be aware. Yeah, moving.
This person is 13 years old and has been at Satipasala for 5 years. During my mindful walking sessions, my main focus point was my feet. I was walking outside, going downhill, then uphill. As the shoes I was wearing had holes in them, I could feel wind and sunlight touching my feet. During the sessions, I got distracted by flies, but I noted that they were distracting me and carried on. I also noted that while going uphill, I could feel my calf and thigh muscles work more. Mindful sitting. During my mindful sitting sessions, my main focus point was my breathing. I noted the air going inside me was cold when I inhaled and warm when I exhaled. I also noted my chest expanding and compressing while I was breathing in and out. One main point when I got distracted was my posture and the way I sat, but then I changed it and went back to watching my breathing.
There also I would like to comment on the early part of the report, that is on the walking and climbing up and climbing down, just like forward and backward. Our body muscles and the power line is completely different when you're walking downward and walking upward. And that is very beautiful. Usually we are asking to walk in the flat, not bending, straightforward line. That's the way it is happening. But if you wish to expand your walking meditation to the day-to-day activities, you always won't get the straight line with the no bends. So there also you can understand this is how mind is diversifying. Imagine you are climbing up a tree and climbing down. Completely two processes. And each and everything you can have kind of a under the light of mindfulness. So therefore this diversification invites, please remember, invites, they come into your stream of consciousness when you are mature in a form. At the beginning it won't come. But when you're developing your capacity, when you're developing your immunity, these challenges are coming. Test it with, play it with. And then someday it is really, really catalyzing yourself and energizing yourself. And according to the teaching of the Buddha, all these things will be reinforced, all things will be galvanized if you are report only. You have to tell someone, you have to communicate someone. Then only it becomes your own experience. Otherwise it is with a suspicion. So therefore these interviews, these reports are very, very important. So report, because others also may get new ideas how to expand this into the meditation, not only the meditation center, but at home. Not only the walking part, but in the climbing up, climbing down, and the breathing also. We are moving to the next.
This person is 17 and they've been in the Satipasala for roughly 5 years. For mindful walking, they said, during the first session, I decided to go outdoors. After looking around, I decided to practice my mindful walking in one of the sand walking paths. My main focal point was the sensations I felt on the soles of my feet. After taking off my shoes, I walked back and forth in the walking path. I remember feeling the different textures on my foot, of gravel, sand, and grass. I noticed that at the beginning, the sand was far warmer than the gravel. This was due to parts of my path being covered by shade, therefore resulting in some areas being warmer than others. However, as I continued walking, I noticed that the whole path became cold, which was due to the changing weather and windy conditions. Whilst walking, I became aware of a small bird that seemed to follow my steps next to me. As I was walking, I saw it bend down into the grass, pick up a worm, and fly away, and I consequently became preoccupied by the bird for the rest of the session. During this third session, I was also outdoors, but I was walking with a friend on a grassy hill. We were a bit preoccupied with our conversation at the beginning, but I later became aware of the grass I was walking on, which seemed to move. I then realized the grass looked so alive because of grasshoppers jumping near our walking path. This made most of my awareness drift from the source of my feet to the grasshoppers, and instead they jumped into my shoes. For mindful sitting, I did all my mindful sitting sessions inside, and I noticed differences between each session. In the first session, my main focus was my breath, and I became hyper-aware/fixated on the volume and depth of each breath. Then I was aware of how I was trying to regulate each breath, so I tried to stop doing so, and I was successful. However, during mindful sitting, I always find my awareness going to either thoughts/dreams of the future or my aching back. In all my mindful sitting sessions, I constantly thought about these. At times, I would catch myself falling asleep, but I would always wake up. Whilst I practiced most of my sitting against the wall, when I was sitting without back support, I noticed that my body would sometimes sway back and forth slightly, which is something I've noted that others experience too. Whilst I do enjoy mindful sitting to a certain extent, I almost always have a better experience/higher sense of awareness during mindful walk.
We took the Maha Sutta in our Sydney retreat. And the Buddha says how the mind is cleansing compared with the day-to-day activities in household life. Yes. Mindful people, no discipline, so much of things are happening, no bookkeeping, there's no data line, and that's happening. So some people understand it's a kind of a torture. So they renounce. They come to a meditation retreat like residential retreat. And when they come, as far as your mind is limited to a periphery of this retreat, you are pretty sure your mind is not obsessed with your day-to-day activities or family life or village life. You are here. And then he says, still, if he or she wish to focus, they can focus on the earth element. Earth element means while you are walking, you are stepping upon a very tall thing, and then you feel rough ground, you feel soft ground, and you see rough things, I don't like it, but soft thing I may be happy, but definitely you are completely out of the household mind mentality, you are completely out of the material center mentality, your mind is now directly under your feet, and because of this pricking sensation. So pricking sensation indicates you are thoroughly mindful, you are here and now. And otherwise, it's a painful situation. It's a tricky situation. But you must know how to put that into in a progressive way under your very nose, the prickly sensation or grass texture, sand texture, carpet texture, wooden texture, you feel it. That means you are away from the tension and frustration of the household life, you are away from the tension and frustration of the monastic life, your tension and frustration is there. Yes, that is under your very nose. Therefore, you must know how to find a reason to be glad under any circumstance. So this is happening only in writing. If you know how to put that in a productive and progressive way of writing, whatever the wrong thing happening, you must try to understand the silver line in the dark cloud. And that is easy for younger generation. When you become elderly, you're obsessed with so much of ideas, it's very difficult. So therefore, I'm not asking you to renounce and become a monk. Because we have set the example. But I'm telling you, come to a residential retreat and see that here and there, the breathing can give a little bit of suffering, friction and aberration. Walking can happen, but it indicates your mind is here and now. Get the point? We are moving.
Okay, this person is 14 years old and has been at Savipassana for 5 years. During mindful walking, I was being aware of the placement of my feet and how my heel touched the floor first, followed by the rest of my foot. I was walking at a moderately fast pace and I was walking outside. I was able to keep my focus and awareness on my feet for a lot of the session. However, occasionally I would get distracted by the flies and also the holes in the ground. I was able to bring my mindfulness back each time though, and I knew this as I was aware of my feet touching the ground as I walked the same way at the start of the session. For mindful sitting, during mindful sitting, my main focal point was my breath and the rising and falling of my chest as I breathed. I was able to notice the speed of my breath was slightly less than regular pace. However, they were deeper breaths than usual. I got distracted by the pain in my legs for sitting for so long, and I noted this and tried to keep going. But since the pain did not go away, I readjusted my position and brought my focus back to my breathing once again.
Yeah, so just like the first question that we were discussing as I mentioned, you can have rising and falling, you can have in-breath and out-breath, and the third party pain also can happen. And whenever you try to be patient with the pain, after a while you feel enough is enough. And then you can come back to the primary object, breathing or the rising and falling. So the point I would like to raise is, you hate pain. That's why this kind of a decision made. Here the pain is painful feeling. So therefore, if you can, before coming back, you can understand what is the motivation of coming back to the primary object, because you don't like. You have had enough with the pain. But it is happening with the hateful mind. I am not telling you that the big hatred, but it's a hate. So these things are the way to understand what motivates me to change the posture. What motivates me to change the other objects. Each and every action has underneath governing motivation. So this is psychiatry. This is, you can read, but don't do it for others. It is none of your business. You do it for yourself. But after a while, you learn emotional intelligence, then you can see why other people are really like that. Because you have your own some kind of a basic understanding. Ultimately, we all human are the same. So therefore, to understand the motivational theory, according to the report of the sitting meditation, you are basically fairly okay with rising and falling, okay with the breath. But when you are dealing with the hate, dealing with the pain, you have kind of a value judgment. And after a while, view it up and come back to primary object. And please, next time when you are doing it, just little pause and see your dislike to the pain. Not only the pain, but there may be a lot of other things. So this is we call thin slicing of time. See how the decision making is happening. And even if it is happening, if you do not know how to report it, if you do not know how to put it in writing, you won't get benefits. But if you are reporting in an efficient way, even the other people can share. Others also can understand how the mind is working. We are moving.
So this person stated their experience. So they attended mindfulness retreat in January of this year. They were in Sri Lanka for 10 years prior to university. So they attended Dhammajiva school where they practiced meditation. And they practiced mindfulness at school every morning. Mindful walking, they said, I placed my attention on the sole of my feet. How, now that I analyze it, I feel like I was imagining it, like a wheel traveling around and around in a circle. There were many times I felt as if my mind was pacing at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Sometimes I started remembering doing mindful walking in this same hall, and my mind would wander back to those same thoughts. I think my problem is I'm aware of my thoughts and my feet, but sometimes the monotonous of my feet causes me to go off track. Is there anything I can do? Like, is there a next step in mindful walk?
So I would like to comment on that. It's a very good observation. And he or she, herself or himself, understood the wandering mind is due to a reason, because you don't like primary object. You are monotonous. You are boring. You are lack of interest. Then only mind finds alternatives. And then can go into other things. So therefore, it is also happening in a rational way. And hardly people understand when you keep on working with the primary object face to face, their boredom sets in, their monotony sets in, and then other objects just plunge into that. What to do? Our master says, my teacher, go prepare. Whenever you are associating one object for longer time, slowly the boredom can set in. Slowly the monotony can set in. And if you can see, it is not a quick thing. It has its own case history. Slowly it is happening. So if you can understand, then you can understand now boredom can come and other object can come into the stream of consciousness. That understanding make you completely vigilant, completely diligent. Under such circumstances, your report will be different. So therefore, answer is, go prepared, specifically when you are in a presidential retreat, there's a boredom can set in. That indicates your meditation is very, very successful. You are face to face with primary one object. That is why the boredom can set in. So the tackling that is not in the pleasure principle. We humans are always running with the pleasure principle. We don't like how the boredom sets in. The tactic the Buddha given is, look at the same object for longer time and then see how the boredom sets in. And it's a big opening for your life, and it's definitely inside meditation, not the samatha meditation. We are moving to the next part.
This person has asked 2 questions as well. We are asked to observe the mind and its thoughts, the way it travels from observing the body to the multitude of thoughts that the mind travels to. However, I've had this question every time I am being mindful. What is this I that is observing the mind? Buddhism identifies that there is no such I or myself. So what is it that's observing the mind? Is it the mind?
Stop it. Finished? Yeah.
Is it the mind observing the mind?
So what you do is, as a rational, radical observer, you think, I have a soul. That is your hypothesis. It's a null hypothesis. Now it is the whole task is to disprove that null hypothesis. So therefore at the beginning it says, I have an I. That is how I can stretch my leg, I can bend my leg, I can do in-breath, I can be out-breath. And therefore at the beginning, yes, there is. But when you keep on continuing, you feel bored, you feel these things are just happenings rather than doing. This may be in the physicality. And then mind is going to the mentality, thinking, pain, emotions, and kind of thing. And there at the beginning you feel like I am responsible. It is happening to me. But after long experience, you see, there are the things happening. I claim this as me and mine. Easily you can disclaim it. But not without experience, not without the long-lasting this. Therefore, my way of answering this question is, at the beginning, set the null hypothesis, there is an I. So even other religious people also can come and join. They are all, we assume, I have an eye. I can walk 10 steps. I can walk 15 steps. That is what my will. But after a while, everyone will agree this is rather autopiloting. It is not what I do. So when it is happening, you must be critical. Where is I? Where is this element? After failure. This is the success of Vipassana. So therefore start with null hypothesis. Do you understand null hypothesis? Before starting a research, you have to set an hypothesis, either prove or disprove. So here this is null hypothesis, negative hypothesis, and disprove it. You will disprove it within 15 minutes. It won't take so much of time, but you have to keep the track with one object. That in there you may be failure, no harm. As far as we have to keep on continuing, we have to prove it. If there is I, my mind will be with, basically with the primary. No, we can't jump in. Who said it now? You can go to the next.
This person asked one more question. We are told in life to let go, to accept things as they really are, to not get attached, but to simply keep existing. However, to achieve goals, we simply must have determination/drive. How is it that we achieve our goals or different targets in life without getting attached or creating greed-associated thoughts, as we are sure to accumulate bhava-tanha or karma?
Yeah, it's a completely wrong idea came from the West, the giving up. This is not meditation. You give up it in order to have a subtle thing here. You give a gross thing, and you have to tackle subtle thing. And then subtle thing will be given up when you are going to get the still subtle thing. That is the total theory of Chula Sunyata Sutta. You have to give something up, you have to hold something. When you are climbing on a ladder, if you have to give up the leg, you have to hold the upper, where we can land ladder again. The ladder we have crossbars, I can't remember the name. You have to hold it. Then only you can give up the leg. And then you hold the next one. So therefore, each time you are holding, it's a completely wrong decision with giving up. Giving up happens according to your new holding. New holding must be a subtler one to the early gross one. That's a total theory you develop, Buddha developed in the Chula Sunyata Sutta, and marvelous. So the Western this is giving up. Giving up is hate. Utter hate. You have to give up, and in order, you are holding something subtle, so that the gross thing will be automatically given up. And that is not one step. And again, you have to still subtler one. And then you will give up the medium kind of gross thing. So likewise, endless. The ultimate it says, there is no complete giving up. You are becoming, your holding thing will be subtle and subtle and subtle and subtle. And after a while, mind loses the grip. Our mind is only happy with gross things. That's what's got the sensuous pleasure. But when we are trying to understand, hold it to the subtler one, bhavatanha will be replaced by karmatanha will be replaced by bhavatanha. Ultimately, bhavatanha will be replaced by vibhavatanha. Vibhavatanha is, maybe I am giving you unwanted thing, it's a death instinct. That's what the Sigmund Freud explained. So don't take it seriously, yeah? Don't take it seriously. That's why people have the fear of meditation. To give the karmatanha, you have to hold bhavatanha. Existence. And bhavatanha will be replaced by vibhavatanha. No one take this subject in the normal Dhamma talks. Well, they wanted to have something, so therefore you give up, and because you hold into a subtle one. And that will be replaced by subtlest. And likewise it is going. So therefore don't get the idea giving up. You can't, unless otherwise you don't know what is the next one you are going to hold. That will be replaced beyond me.
Mindful walking. I began walking and observing the sensations on my feet. Sensations began from the sole of the feet to the toes, feeling the sand/grass beneath my feet. I observed my heel lifting and arching, along with my toes lifting from the ground. During the walking sessions, I noticed my attention drifting to other things, which I immediately tried to bring back. I was aware of what was happening around me. From time to time, I would observe animals and grass swaying in the wind. My legs began to hurt after some time. However, I accepted this as a byproduct of walking without shoes. Mindful sitting. To me, this was more difficult than mindful walking due to my hips. Sitting in one place for a long time is difficult. I realized the sensation of my body when sitting mindfully. Firstly, I noticed my breathing, expanding lungs and diaphragm when sitting especially. It was more difficult to be aware as my eyes are closed. I was aware that my mind was sometimes distracted by other things.
Now, the second sentence, it says the pressure moving from the sole to the toes. Okay, meditation.
Yeah.
Can you repeat that sentence?
I began walking and observing the sensations of my feet. Sensations began from the sole of the feet to the toes.
Yeah, it is from the heel to the toes. Sole means whole thing is called sole. Am I correct in English? Yeah. So therefore you have to understand it is moving, and in the breath also you will be very good and efficient if you can see the gross breath. And ultimately gross breath will be replaced by subtle breath. And this subtle breath, if you are not hesitant, and if you look at subtle breath, will be replaced by subtlest. So likewise, you are giving up because you know what is your catching. And the heel is the straight line. When you are walking, the power line happens to the skull. But when you go to the toes, it is becoming thin, and each and every step you can see to the grossness to the subtlest it is happening. And when it's subtle again, the next leg come and yeah. This may be very, very micro. So you have to understand when you keep on practicing, whenever the subtle thing going to set in, you feel bored. Because but anyway, it is a development in your meditation. It is a progress in your meditation. So therefore, you have to be prepared, and you have to expose to these interviews and question and answers. And day by practicing, next time when you go to the walking meditation and sitting meditation, you start with the gross one. And slowly what happens is, gross will be replaced by subtle will be replaced by subtlest, and it won't take so much of time. But the only thing is, you have to have the mindset. You have to have the preparedness. Preparedness is easily explained in Buddhist teaching. Any one of you practice scouting and Girl Guides? No? Very good one. Scouting කරලා තියෙනවද?
She has.
Huh?
Girls Guide she has done.
Girl Guide. So, but the first motto in Girl Guide, be prepared. So you are a best soldier. You are the best alert person. So exactly the same Buddha says, Appamadena bhikkhave sampadena, be prepared. Prepared to what? Close to the subtle to the subtlest, and then happening, gross will be given up, then the subtle will be given up, and slowly you go. So in this report, this notion is there. Developing, go preparedness, go with the prepared mind, or vigilant mind, or mindset. And we all have the same potential for that. We all have the same possibility for that. It decides by your preparedness at the outset of your sitting and walking session. Yes. Next.
This person has said, during mindful walking, I tried to be aware of when my foot would touch the ground and press onto the foot, and notice the sensation I could feel as this happened. I would then notice the toes push off the ground and feel my other leg coming down to touch the ground in the same manner. I could feel this process and become more aware of how both legs were moving. I also noticed the pace I was walking with, and if my mind was drifting, I slowed down my pace to bring my attention back to my feet. During the walking, I noticed my mind would drift a lot to think of past memories or think about what I would be doing in the future, as in everyday life. There are a lot of distractions and stimulants that my mind has become accustomed to. The walking has showed me how often I am daydreaming and not embracing the present moment, as it is not easy for me to keep my awareness on the feet and what is happening around me. So the walking is a good way for me to calm down the mind. For mindful sitting, they said, during mindful sitting, I aim to be aware of how the breath is moving in and out of my body. I use the sensation in the nostrils to feel this, as well as my stomach expanding and contracting with each breath in and out. As my eyes were closed, there were less distractions and it was a bit easier to stay engaged on the breath. However, I still notice my mind drift to memories. The biggest obstacle for me is noticing the pains in my back and neck that became too overwhelming sometimes, that I lose my awareness and have to change my position.
Changing the posture, as I mentioned, just see the motivation in your mind because you don't like pain. That's why you are moving this to do it. But with that preparedness. And the other thing is, observations are very good. So therefore you are starting with crossing and if it is becoming subtler and subtler, it is put in this way. You start with science, at the end of the meditation is an art. When you become subtler and subtler, everything is very aesthetic. At the beginning, gross, black and white, very, very, how do you call it, dramatic phenomena. But when you keep on practicing, it's an art. So therefore, you must learn how our mind is twisting from the science to art. So ultimately, you will love your earth. You will love the pollutionless world. At the beginning, it doesn't matter. Please continue because this analytical report is appreciable. We are moving.
Yeah, we will have to start the talk at 6:45. So I think it is better for us to have a break and then come back around at least 6:50 so that we will have sufficient time for a break. Yeah, about 25 minutes. And we will take the rest of the questions tomorrow. Thank you very much.
I would like to know that I may be too much for you. Is it too much to expose this kind of thing or can I tomorrow also have the same talk? It's okay? Only you two, okay, but I don't know that.
All right. Thank you very much for joining. See you at 6:50.